I recently watched The Aviator by Martin Scorsese. I enjoyed this movie a lot, but I don't think it's one of Scorsese's best works. It was still a fun movie to watch with great characters, great acting, and mostly great direction. But what struck me while watching this movie is how ugly I thought the earlier parts of it were. And after finishing it, I did what I always do after watching a movie. I went online to learn more about it, the characters, the time period, and to see what others thought about it. And to my surprise, there was a lot of discussion around how good it looked. Yes, there were some people who shared my original opinion. And I say original opinion because the more I read into it, the more I started to understand and appreciate why it looked that way. I still don't find this movie to be particularly good looking, but we all know the saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And this movie really made me think. What makes a movie generally accepted as being visually beautiful? The first term that usually comes to mind is cinematography. If a movie has amazing cinematography, then the movie will be visually beautiful. And yes, that is generally true. But cinematography is a term that encapsulates a lot of different visual elements. By loose definition, cinematography is the art of photography and visual storytelling in a motion picture or television show. It comprises of all the on-screen visual elements. This includes lighting, framing, composition, camera motion, camera angles, film selection, lens choices, depth of field, zoom, focus, color, exposure, and filtration. And in the past few decades, it has also began to include the CGI and visual effects of a film. But cinematography isn't the only thing that results in a visually good-looking movie. We still have to consider set design, costume, makeup, and its overarching style. In this video, we'll be going over some of the most visually beautiful movies and trying to pinpoint the reasons as to why they are so beautiful. There's an endless supply of movies to consider, so if you like this video and want to see more, let me know and I'll make subsequent parts. But for now, let's get to the first movie on our list. Mad Max Fury Road is a movie that epitomizes the idea of style over substance. With a fairly simple plot, George Miller was able to focus in on the action and deliver a spectacle that is already considered to be one of the best action films of all time. Let's take a look at how this movie was able to redefine the action movie genre and deliver such a great spectacle. A common technique that we see in a lot of action movies today is the use of quick cuts and a shaky cam. These techniques are used so often and many times so poorly that they have become a meme associated with action movies. These techniques can make a movie look significantly worse if not done right, as they tend to disorient and confuse the user more than they help to better the visuals and the immersion. The first thing that Mad Max does differently is in how it uses the placement of the focal point of its scenes to allow for quick cuts and a shaky cam without the disorienting effects we get in some other movies. George Miller was able to achieve this by keeping the main focal point of a scene in roughly the center of the screen. This movie was shot in a very wide aspect ratio, and having the main focal point be mostly centered on the screen reduced the amount of searching the viewer had to do with their eyes. This allowed for quicker cuts without causing confusion and still getting the point of the action across. Take a look at this scene. You can see how you never have to look from far left to far right, but most of the time you are looking at the middle of the screen with very limited eye movements. This movie is filled with almost non-stop action, but it is done so differently than many other action-heavy movies because the action is so easy to follow. The majority of Mad Max Fury Road takes place in a barren, orange, sand-filled landscape with the main set pieces being comprised of dirty cars and even dirtier and grimier people. But somehow it just works and it looks so good. To understand why the colors in this movie work so well, you have to take a look at and understand this wheel. This is known as the complementary color wheel. Complementary colors are just one aspect of what is known as color theory, and colors on opposite sides of this wheel make each other pop. For example, if you were to use the colors red and green, they will complement each other and provide a higher contrast and higher impact color combination. Looking at Mad Max, you see the vibrant orange of the landscape and the crisp, cool blue of the sky. They complement each other in a way that makes both of them seem surreal, but also pleasant to the eyes. And even though a lot of this movie is orange, the blues help cancel some of that orange out, which reduces the potential fatigue of watching just an orange desert. And Mad Max uses complementary colors not only in single scenes, but also over its entire runtime. There are parts of this movie that take place during the night, which is heavily colored in a blue hue. Take a look at this timeline of color throughout the movie. From this color timeline, we can see how these complementary colors are used throughout the entire runtime of the movie. With a movie as ambitious as Mad Max Fury Road, George Miller could have settled on using CGI for the majority of the action set pieces. But he didn't. This movie uses CGI sparingly. It's used in a way that enhances the action versus being the action. When practical effects are used in movies that have a lot of things we are used to seeing on a daily basis, such as vehicles, sand, and dust, it reduces the likelihood of looking and feeling real. With CGI, we can have physics errors, where the objects don't move or interact with other items the way we expect them to. Sometimes the lighting may look off and throw off the realism. Movies that use CGI for items that we aren't used to seeing on a regular basis are usually better off. Mad Max falls into the former category. We know how vehicles behave. We roughly know how sand or dust gets thrown up from underneath car tires. And we even know how vehicles should behave when they are in an accident and roll over. Now don't get me wrong, Mad Max still uses a lot of CGI, but it uses it in a way that doesn't get in the way. The CGI is used to enhance. Modern CGI has come very far and become a lot more realistic when compared to what it was in its infancy, but it could still be hit or miss at times. There is still something about using practical effects combined with CGI that can really sell a scene. When I think of set design, the first thing that comes to my mind is the location in which a movie or scene takes place. And yes, that is generally true, but it's a little bit different in the case of Mad Max Fury Road. The location is the desert, but the actual set is the vehicles. Vehicles in this movie act as props, they act as the MacGuffin, and they act as the set itself. Each vehicle has its own personality and style. And one of my favorite scenes and vehicles in this movie is the one where the guitar playing outlaw is just rocking out with fire coming out of his guitar. This attention to detail doesn't go unnoticed. The cars in this movie have a style to them that is cool and intriguing. I love it when movies can make something that is so grimy and dirty look so beautiful, and Mad Max does this amazingly. There are a lot of movies that do this really well. I love the dirty and worn down look of X-Wings in the original Star Wars trilogy, the world and props of Blade Runner, and the cars in this movie. There's something about having these objects and locations look worn down and used that makes them look so much better. They have a story behind them that an object like the N-1 starfighter from Star Wars Episode 1 doesn't. This untold story can add to the intrigue and beauty of an object. The Revenant is a movie that is packed full of brutality, and brutality is generally considered to be ugly. It makes people uncomfortable and squeamish, but somehow it's impossible to walk away from The Revenant and not ponder on the beauty you just witnessed with your own eyes. So what does The Revenant do to make it look so beautiful despite its grim and brutal plot? When The Revenant was being released back in 2015, I was excited, because I heard it was shot almost entirely using natural lighting. And before then, I never paid much attention to lighting in movies. I started diving deep into how much artificial lighting is used on the average movie set. It was news to me to learn that on big productions, there are entire lighting crews that are run by someone known as a gaffer, whose job it is to execute the lighting plan for the production. And after learning about some of the production struggles that this movie went through with the lack of snow and the short time frames each day to record their scenes because of the lighting, I was wondering, was it all worth it? And yes, it was worth it. 100%. This movie looks amazing. There's something about using natural light that just allows you to be more immersed in a movie and, no pun intended, see things in a more natural way. Combined with its time period and setting, the use of natural light gives the movie a more authentic feel. When recording my own videos, I always find the hardest part to be getting the lighting and sound right. And that's just me in my room most of the time without doing anything crazy. I could go on and on about how beautiful the lighting in The Revenant looks, but instead, let me show you a few scenes. The Revenant makes use of long takes to portray suspense, immerse the viewer in the battles, and to exude the emotions that the characters on screen are experiencing. It also uses long takes to show us the beauty of the wilderness in which the movie takes place. There's a certain allure that well-executed long takes have, and The Revenant has one of my favorite combinations of long takes ever put to film. I'm of course talking about what I call the get to the boat scene. This scene combines a few long takes so perfectly. There's non-stop action going on during the scene. You really fear for Leonardo DiCaprio's life when he's being choked by a native, and despite all of this violence, it never stops looking beautiful with its natural lighting and scenery. When I watch these scenes, I wonder how much preparation had to go into them and how many tries they had to do to get them right. They are done outside, with limited time during what looks like golden hour in a natural environment, where in the words of Alejandro González Iñárritu himself, it is very difficult to shoot video of nature. You cannot rule nature, you're just a part of it. This is why I love learning more about the movies I watch. To me, movies are not just a one and done. They're something that I like to dive deep into. I like to understand the troubles the production went through. I enjoy hearing about the unique things certain movies do, and I love it when I have an assumption that is either proven wrong or I'm made to understand more about it. I don't even know where to begin with this one. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. It scares me, makes me hopeful, makes me wonder, makes me feel so many different things that I consider this to be a true masterpiece of a movie. A true work of art. Each scene of this movie belongs in a museum. The first time I watched this movie was with my brother in my parents' basement, and I became so immersed by its beauty and environments that I would often forget I was just on a couch munching on some popcorn. A good movie shouldn't just use nice visuals and overall beauty to give the viewer a pleasant experience. It should also use them to immerse the viewer in the story, make the viewer feel like they are there with the characters, or at least make the viewers feel what the characters are feeling. A lot of movies do this by having great actors that can convey emotion in a way that is so believable to the audience that the viewer has no choice but to connect with the characters on screen. But 2001: A Space Odyssey is different. The environment is the main character. The visuals are the supporting role, and all the actors are there to support them and help drive the story forward. Stanley Kubrick really outdid himself with this movie, and he left his mark on cinema history forever. It's difficult to even begin talking about why this movie looks so beautiful because there are so many reasons, but I put together a few reasons why this movie stands out. In a very sanitary representation of what Stanley Kubrick imagined the future would look like, there is an almost abundance of white. All of this white leaves us feeling hollow and lifeless. This is contrasted by the use of the color red. Red is used in this movie to symbolize many different things. It's a reminder that even though we are in a sanitary, colorless future, we still have life, and that humans fight to keep that life going. It also acts as a way to show tension and aggression in certain scenes, and at times it is used as a symbol of evil and betrayal. Oftentimes we see movies using lots of colors because, the general consensus is that more is better. But not in this case. Red and colors in general are used sparingly for the most part. They are often used as an accent, a way to break up each scene and provide some visual interest for the viewer. Where we have color in the opening scene, we have lack of color in most of the movie that takes place in the future, until that psychedelic transition to the final act. The way this movie used practical effects was revolutionary. You can tell the amount of love and care that went into each scale model and each effect. From large spinning sets to small floating pens, the practical effects in this movie are amazing. And for a movie that came out in 1968, it really stands the test of time so well. Just take a look at this scene. It looks so good, and this is made with scale models. Or this. This is a full-on rotating set that allows it to look like a spaceship with artificial gravity. The sets and costume design in this movie are at such a high level that you can immediately tell there was either a lot of obsession or love that went into the making of it. But who are we kidding here? It's Stanley Kubrick, so it was definitely obsession. Today we can do most of this with CGI, but there's still something special and beautiful about how these scale models and sets interact with the actors in a real way. There's a sense of craftsmanship that resonates from these sets and models that is sometimes lacking from modern movies. Thanks for watching. This video turned out way differently than I originally expected. It went from being a rant about the Aviator's color grading, to then being a video about all the different things that make movies beautiful, to finally becoming a video where I talk about some beautiful movies and discuss some reasons as to why they are so beautiful. If you like this video and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for videos I should make in the future, make sure to leave a comment below and I'll be sure to read it, and maybe even make a video with your idea. Until next time, have a good one.